Okay. Good afternoon. I am happy to not be immediately after lunch or immediately before lunch or last in the day, because those are terrible places to be. Let me start with a demonstration of how committed I am to ExDev. About 10 months ago, my wife said, hey, let's do a big sort of birthday thing for you, for your 40th, for your dad's 65th, for my dad's 65th. Let's go to Hawaii. I said, awesome, let's go to Hawaii. So January, we rented a house for the 8 of us and our extended family in Maui. That's the view from the back of the house, looking over the ocean, nice pool. This is where I was yesterday. That vacation we planned happened to span this week. That's where I'll be tomorrow. I flew back here to give this presentation. So that's how committed I am to ExDev. My wife didn't have a problem drinking my share of the Mai Tais, unfortunately. Okay, so what we're going to do, this is going to be a few little pictures like this, kind of cartoonish things, and then code. I'm going to walk through something beyond a hello world example of how to build a capability, as Neil said before, some business functionality, some self-standing thing that's useful to a merchant on the X.Commerce platform. Show you how to integrate with the X Fabric, show you what the patterns of messaging are, and show you something actually operating end to end. No sugar. There's not going to be any even sweetener here. This is completely unadorned. What that implies is that you're both going to see some of the bits that you wish you didn't see, but it's also going to be an opportunity for us to say these are things that you're not going to have to do, because we're going to have progressively more sort of tools and frameworks and documentation that make all this stuff easier. So this is the worst case that I'm going to show you. So what we're going to see, first of all, is a Magento extension. So we're going to build this thing that will send messages, these inventory updates, out through the fabric. They'll get picked up by this thing that I'm calling a deal announcer, a little listener that listens to messages over the fabric and sends them out to Facebook. Posts deal of the day for the merchant. So we're going to build that. We're not going to build Magento. Sorry. We're not going to build the fabric here today. That's going to be already running. Nor are we going to build Facebook. Although if anybody has a little extra time, feel free to go for it. What I want to do, probably different than some sessions, is take questions on the fly. Because I think that the nature of this is actually conducive to getting a lot more out of it if we have some interaction. So please shout them out. If you don't feel like you want to shout them out, tweet, hashtag, some wonderful person somewhere in the room will be watching. There we go, back there. And yelling them out. So I want to ask you a question first. Developers in the room. You're a developer? Put up your hand. Okay, if you're not a developer, put up your hand. All right, not too many of you. Okay, good. You'll still have fun. PHP developer. You don't have to just choose one of the next set. Java developer. Ruby developer. Oh, man. Ruby always gets the short end of the stick. So the deal announcer is going to be in Ruby. Magento, as we probably all know, is in PHP. Who's a Magento developer? Says, yeah, I build Magento stuff. Excellent. Good. So there's going to be something for everybody here. So let's get right into it. These are sort of the blow-up pieces that we're going to build. We're going to have, in fact, a total of exactly 7 files, one of them is not shown here, that we'll touch to build this end-to-end demo. All right, let's get to it. First thing I want to do is build a new Magento extension. Var Magento. I forgot something very important. If you find a bug or a mistake as I go, something I've missed, shout it out. First person to shout out something that I missed, maybe there'll be a few that are intentionally seeded, you get a pack of macadamia nuts. You have 3 choices, Maui onion, Hawaiian sea salt, and wasabi. So when they're gone, they're gone. If there's some left at the end, then they go to people that ask good questions. Okay, your opportunity awaits. All right, app, Etsy. So this is where you configure a Magento module. I apologize for those that find this boring, but it's important to look at the whole process. Again, nothing hidden. So this is where I'm going to put a new module configuration for Magento. I am going to cut and paste some code because you don't want to watch me write a whole bunch of angle brackety stuff, I don't think. All right, there's a new Magento module. Nothing to it. basic, just says, you know, where to put it, which code pool. Magento is divided up into code pools, so this is going to go in the local code pool. And I just stuck a random dependency in so it initializes somewhere in the life cycle of modules for Magento. Oops. Now, let's give it a little bit more configuration. Code core. We need to build this directory, local, Xcommerce, inventory publisher. Magento is very sort of convention oriented. Hang on, I'll get you in a second. Very convention oriented, so I'm going to, unless that was a bug I already made. Was it a bug? What did I do? Code. Oh. Okay, what do you want? Out onion, sea salt, or wasabi? Wasabi. I'm not going to throw them. Come get them. That's the price you have to pay. You got to come and get your nuts. All right, you're right. Let's go up a directory. Thank you. I would have found that eventually. Oh, Praveen's going to run the nuts to people. All right, now we need the configuration file. This configures the module itself. The other one was telling Magento where to find the module. This is actually giving the module its configuration. Hope I don't run out of nuts before I get through the first piece. All right. Again, not a lot here, mostly boilerplate. The interesting thing is going to come right here. So what we want to have happen inside Magento is when I, as the merchant, go in and manipulate my inventory, I want Magento, the extension that we're building actually, to send out a message to the fabric. And we'll talk about how to do that precisely, but we need to first of all, you know, be invoked. Somebody's got to say, hey, something's changed in the inventory, do what you want to do with it. So that's what we're going to hook up right here. So let's put that in next. The lights go down, that's cool. All right, here's the event specification. All right, so what this says is when this event fires, catalog product save after, I want to call my observer that's called Xcommerce Inventory Publisher Observer, and I want to call this method save inventory data. Standard method. I don't think I made any mistakes cutting and pasting. That's good. Oh yeah, one package of nuts per person. Should have mentioned that. Okay, now we need a little bit of code. So this is where I'm going to put that class I just pointed to from the configuration file. I've often forgotten that line, which hopefully somebody would have noticed. Class, Xcommerce, Inventory Publisher, that's the name of the class that we defined. Model, Observer. Again, convention tells Magento that there's a correspondence between the path and the class name itself. And, okay, what was the name of the function? Pack of nuts waiting. Save, inventory, data. Oh, man. So before we actually do anything really interesting with this, let's just make sure we've got it basically working. So we'll just output, whoops. Let's just output something about this, a new event that we got. Event, get product. Okay, how did I know all that? Well, I looked it up in the documentation. Beauty of Magento, open source. You can't find it in the docs. Go look in the code. Somebody's already probably done it someplace. Here's a log function, get name. All right, so what this is going to do when we run it, with any luck, let's look at the Magento log. With any luck, when we go in here, so this is the Magento administration interface for the merchant. So we'll go in here, we'll say manage products. So again, what we want to have happen here is anytime I modify my inventory, anything in my catalog, I want to send that event out to the fabric. So let's edit this one product. It's obviously an awesome product. It's $1.99, SKU 123. It's a really, truly, honestly awesome product. We'll save it. And let's see. System log. Ha, what do you know? There it is, the name of the product. So we've got the basic wiring on the Magento side set up. Okay? Now, let's do something with the fabric. Okay. Folks remember Neil talking about contracts, talking about the ontology, right? This is the open core of X.Commerce. This is the heart of the ecosystem. A contract governs the messages that a given capability can send to the fabric and must receive from the fabric. So the fabric is a completely message-based infrastructure, messages in, messages out, all over HTTP. So if I want to communicate with the fabric, I need to know what contract I'm going to conform to. So we have contracts defined, right? And in fact, here's the little drum roll. This is a public GitHub repo where we are going to actually collaboratively with you, with the community, develop the contracts, continue to develop the contracts for X.Commerce. So here are a couple that we've already seeded, Catalog and Marketplace. These are exactly the contracts that are underneath the demos that you saw this morning, actually the running contracts. And then a little bit of discussion here about how to, how to participate and what these contracts mean. So that's the real story. What I'm going to do to, again, show you what this means in the details is define a new contract from scratch to show you how easy it is. Contract is defined in Avro's IDL. So Avro is a nice serialization format. It actually came out of the Apache Hadoop project. It has quite a nice IDL, reasonably nice IDL, for describing interactions. We use a subset of that IDL to define contracts. So I'm going to define this contract. First of all, we need a namespace. Let's call it com x product inventory. And we'll build this thing called a protocol. Our protocol is, the way we use it, is just a group of messages, which we call records. I'll have this thing called an item. That's an inventory item. And then I want to be able to pass some items. And we'll just make that an array of item. Okay? What's interesting in here? Something about the actual product that got updated that's going to contain the data that we want to transport across the fabric. So let's, again, not sort of go through all this in typing speed, but here we go. So some stuff that we might care about. Again, beyond Hello World, but yeah, not the most sophisticated example, but we're going to pass the SKU, a product title, the current price, the URL, and the string that we're going to call deal of the day, which is the thing that's going to trigger ultimately the Facebook update. Did I see a question or a potential bug? No? Oh, good. Escaped another one. Okay. Now, how do we turn this thing into a machine-readable format? Again, actually, time for a plug. So the developer package contains an Eclipse plugin. If you're a Java developer or you happen to be an Eclipse user, even if you're not a Java developer, the plugin actually contains a Java code generator that can read in these files, these AVDL files, and produce capabilities for you that you just go and fill in sort of your business logic. Again, we're going to do all this from scratch, so we're going to use the raw tools. In this case, we use this thing called the IDL compiler. I'm going to compile, and there it is. So this is just now a JSON representation, a raw JSON representation of the contract. And let's just sort of sloppily stick it someplace where we can get at it. Okay, now we have the contract. Let's go back to our class. So now what I want to do is take the data that's captured in this product that just got updated in the storefront. Oh, Shankar. Where? Ah, am I? How pedantic are you? You don't need one. What do you want? Wasabi, Maui onion, or... He was going to keep going with anything minor until I gave him nuts, so... You don't need it, and I'm not going to put it in. Otherwise, what's the benefit of writing in PHP if you can't be sloppy? Oh, snap. All right, so let's put some more code in here. Whoops. What we want to do is take some data out of that product that just got updated, and we're going to send it out over the fabric. But first thing we need to do, take the data and put it into an Avro encoded message. Again, there's lots of very simple things that we can do to take the amount of code that you're going to see now down to very little code, but again, I'm going to show you the raw material. So here it is. First thing we do is load the Avro protocol. We define this thing that we call a schema that says, here's the kinds of data that we're going to put in the message, set up some buffers and whatnot, a writer, and then grab the data out of the product, the SKU, the title, the price, the URL, this deal of the day attribute, put it all in this thing that we call item, and then write out that array of items into the message. That's it. Message written. To prove that we're actually going to do something before we send it, let's do this. All right, let's go now and take a look and see if that actually did what we wanted. Edit the product again and save it. And now, with any luck, oh, nobody caught me. I make this mistake every single time. This was the one that, what did I forget? No, actually what I forgot was what I forgot was to tell PHP anything about Avro. It's not that smart. Okay, let's try that again. Just resend that. Okay, there it is. So, interesting thing to note is that this first block of the Avro message actually carries the schema with it. So every Avro message actually contains everything that you need to be able to process the message as a system, as a machine. That's a nice advantage to the Avro format. And then you see our data down here, the product, its URL, et cetera, et cetera. All right, so far so good. Now what? I got to send the message to the Fabric. How do we send messages? Folks know pub sub, right? In a pub sub environment, we you can use topics, right? So the way that messaging works in the Fabric is capabilities send messages to topics, publish to topics, and they can subscribe to topics. So we need a topic. We need some place to send this message. So this is the X-Manager UI. This is the internal user interface for managing the X Fabric, or the X.Commerce Fabric. This will not likely be the interface that is generally exposed to users of this infrastructure. It is the one that you get to use as developers. So when you download the developer package, you get the Fabric, exactly what I'm running here, including this interface that lets you manipulate the configuration of capabilities, these objects, and the topics that allow you to exchange messages. So I'm going to first of all create a topic. Inventory updated. So take note of this. So this thing that says tenant required, I'm going to leave that checked because it's going to give us an opportunity to talk about a really important characteristic of the X Fabric, X.Commerce Fabric. That's the multi-tenant nature of it. Every message that, generally every message that sort of is transmitted through the Fabric is associated with some tenant. Generally think of it as a merchant. So if one capability is sending a message on behalf of a merchant, they have to demonstrate that they're allowed to do so. And we'll get back to what that looks like in a second. All right. So now, whoops. Oh, one of the X Fabric guys should have caught me on that one. Okay. Topic, there it is, inventory updated. Now we need to identify ourselves, right? I've built a new thing that wants to communicate over the Fabric. It needs an identity, right? So it is a capability. Anything that sends and receives messages you can think of as a capability, simplistically. So here, create a capability. Create a capability. We'll call it inventory publisher. Because so far as we're concerned so far, this code doesn't care anything about what's going to happen on the other side, right? All I'm doing is saying, hey, maybe there's somebody out there that's interested in inventory changes. Merchant installs this extension, authorizes it, messages start getting sent. Whoever the merchant authorizes to get those messages can take action on them, which we're going to do in a second. We'll come back to this endpoint concept. Okay, so now we have a new capability, we have a topic. So let's send a message. Back to our code. A little more cut and paste here. Let's get rid of the log. And now let's put in some message send. So this is just going to simply use curl. Again, there's layers that we can put in between to make this, less codey, but showing you the raw material. So first thing we need to do is say, where's the endpoint? The convention is that a topic becomes part of the URL. So there's the endpoint for the Fabric, which is by default where it runs when you install the local version. And the topic just becomes the path. Okay. For 2 packets of nuts, not from the X.Commerce team, what do you think will happen if I try to run this code now? Anybody? Say again? Absolutely. 2 packs of nuts. So if I'm going to just do that so you see what it looks like. Mage, log, response. Help yourself to whichever 2 flavors you like. Or 2 of 1. Okay. Still running our tail? Yeah. So let's do that. Let's actually send this message. Hit the product again. And save it. Save. Okay, there it is. Authorization was not specified. Access denied. Okay, so let's go figure out how we're going to give it access. So presumably we need some token, right? We need some identifier that says, hey, I'm this thing that I just called inventory publisher. I need to put that someplace. So where do we find that? Let's go see. Okay, I'm in the inventory publisher capability. Let's take a look. So I've got this thing that says destination ID, which tells other entities, what my identity is, my identifier is. Authorization info. Okay, here we go. So this XFabric bearer token thing lets me verify that when the fabric sends me a message that it's actually the fabric. So this is a unique token that I use to validate that the fabric is who it says it is, so that somebody can't send me random stuff. Okay, so here's this bearer token. Let's see what happens if I put this in. I actually need to put one more line of code in first. We send this token using another curl command right here. And let's go over here to the end and get my token back and drop it in here. Okay, anybody know what's going to happen now? Not you, Matei. He wrote this code. He can't answer the question. He's the guy that actually wrote the text in the error message that we're going to see in a second, I think. Yeah. Well, keep looking, guys. Okay. Drum roll. Let's save it. Another error message, I was going to guess. Aha, tenant-specific bearer token required for this topic, right? Multi-tenant. I can't actually send a message to this topic until I demonstrate that I am allowed to do so on behalf of some tenant, in this case on behalf of a merchant. So let's go authorize this capability. So you see down here, authorize a tenant. Let's authorize this guy, merchant 2. Now I get a new token. This token says, when you want to send a message on behalf of merchant 2, they've got a tenant ID that identifies them uniquely to me, to this capability, and here's the token to use. Let's grab it and drop it in. Yes, you need the text bearer. No, you wouldn't put it in your code. You'd put it in configuration. So that's one of the things, and I'm actually going to spend a couple minutes talking about the things that I'm kind of doing that you wouldn't do. You wouldn't put that in your code, right? And in fact, if we have a little extra time, the way what I'll demonstrate is actually how the infrastructure itself distributes these tokens. So when over here I was kind of acting on behalf of the merchant. I was saying, hey, I'm merchant 2, and I'm authorizing inventory publisher to act on my behalf, right? And the merchant wouldn't do that in this user interface, but there's APIs that this uses that a merchant-facing console could also use to set up these authorizations. So that token would actually be sent to the capability. The capability then stores it and uses it in the future for that merchant. So that all happens as a handshake at the beginning.
That would happen at subscription.
That would happen at subscription time. So let me actually show you a little picture on that topic. So you see up at the upper right, so register publisher, authorizes publisher for merchant 2. The human gets back a token, which is what we just did, but the manager will also send that token directly to the publisher, which I'm not showing here because we're not actually using it today. And in fact, let me show you something else. Yeah, question. Farrell. The topics are global to the whole universe. Yep. So here's where you'll notice sending notification of new tenant merchant 2 to capability inventory publisher, but we didn't specify an endpoint for the inventory publisher on which the fabric could send that token. So we got an error. In fact, that error also shows up over here in the log that says, hey, I failed to deliver this tenant updated message. So that's the full story. All right, I think we are now ready. Let's update this product one more time. Not here, over here. Edit. So Farhang, that's a good question. If we need to namespace them, there's no reason we can't do that, change the visibility of them, but at this point we haven't seen an... We will be getting to that point. So Farhang's got a good question about how we manage sort of the associations between these things. There is a model that's under development now or in design now that will allow us to manage the relationships between actors and topics using this idea of a role, and that's sort of in play for our GA release. Not done yet. Did I save it, or did I get distracted before I saved it? Oh, I guess I saved it. There it is. Okay. That's it. That's all the Fabric, all the publisher gets when the message is sent to the Fabric. So let's see what actually happened behind the scenes. If we look at the log again, we'll see, yeah. Grab the GUID. Which GUID? Oh, the one that I got over here? Oh yeah, this guy. Thank you. And then put it in the viewer, yeah? So I can go over here and I can track that message. Oops, I didn't get the cut. Hang on. Sorry, say again? All I did was authorize the merchant, or authorize the tenant authorize the capability, the publisher for the tenant, and then took that new bearer token and put it in the code. So Matej's got the good point. There's the message. We got back this nice little ID that says, hey, here's the ID for your message. I just put it into the logger and it said, hey, no recipients. Sure enough, nobody subscribed to the topic. So let's build the other side of it. It gets easier now. So let's do a Rails new listener. All right, new app. So now I have an endpoint, right? So I'll do a little bit of stuff that I have to do eventually anyway. So Afro, got to tell Ruby about Afro. And we're going to use this reasonably nice library for Facebook integration called Koala. And let's set up a route. So just as the inbound to the Fabric, you saw the host port, the path was the topic, same way that it's going to come into an endpoint for a capability. So we're going to get this thing called inventory updated, ultimately. And I'm going to call into this controller inventory, I'm going to call its update method. Let's run it. Okay, new endpoint. If I go back over to the UI, I need another capability, right? The other side is a capability just like the publisher side was. So let's create inventory, let's call it deal announcer. Endpoint. What's its endpoint? Rails app. Okay? All there is to it. Is it going to work yet? What? Authentication again, but I also haven't even subscribed to the topic. So let's put this in here. And like we said, let's authorize it. And you'll note over here, we also got that message that says, hey, you got a new tenant. I'm not listening to that message. I don't have a route for it. So we dropped it on the floor, which the Fabric found out about and logged it. But we're going to just cut and paste it like we did before. Again, extra credit, it's actually in the, there's a GitHub repo that's got all this in it as well. In there, there's also the instructions to finish the rest of the code to actually take the tenant ID and store it and use it, just like you were asking about before, as opposed to doing it by hand. All right, now we need a controller. App, controllers, inventory controller. Now it's time for the Ruby guys in the room to look for bugs. It's going to be hard because it's cut and paste. All right, so what we're going to do. Get the message. Decode it. I happen to base 64 encode it on the other side, not for any really good reason. I'm going to create a reader from Avro. I'm going to read it out of the buffer, and then each item each element I get, each datum as they're called, I'm going to spit it out. Simple as that. Note that nowhere in here do I refer explicitly to the schema that was in the contract file. It's carried in the message. So let's write this guy out. And go edit the product again. Edit. Save. There we go. There's the title, the price. It's not a deal of the day yet. It's SKU and its URL. All right. We are in the final stretch. Let's do something with this data. Let's make our merchants some more money. So we're going to loop over the items. Remember that the structure that we're sending is an array of items. And one last cut and paste. Everybody can memorize my auth token if they are so inclined. Again, more hackery here, right? What I would really want to do is when I was authorized for the merchant, we'd do an OAuth dance, and I'd get the merchant's OAuth credentials to OAuth token to actually be able to publish on their behalf to Facebook. So I could be triggered to do that when I got that initial message from the fabric. We're going to hard code it for now. All right. Let's do it. So you see I'm not faking. Here's the merchant's page. Nothing there. Wall is blank. Let's go back to the catalog, edit the product. Now it's going to be a deal. Where is it? There we go, deal of the day. So this is one thing that I did do in advance. I created this new custom attribute called deal of the day using the standard Magento mechanism. Save it. Merchant, refresh. There it is. Deal of the day, click on it. Back to the storefront. So I just advertised a deal of the day on my Facebook page. That's it, end to end. So again, there's lots of pieces here. First of all, actually, there's an important piece here that you don't need to worry about. So the messages coming out from Magento, those are already going to be wired in. They're going to be part of Magento, either out of the box or simple extension. You don't have to build those things. So Magento today, as part of the multi-marketplace integration, is already emitting a whole bunch of messages corresponding to the contracts that are on this GitHub page that I showed you before. These guys that are part of the current multi-marketplace, multi-channel integration, including this catalog service. And that will be on us to continue to build that integration. So to build this demo in the real world, all you need to build is the Facebook side. And then you, the developer, can package up that application. Ultimately, you'll be able to distribute it through the X.commerce ecosystem. Merchants can pick it up and begin using it. So the end-to-end exercise for you as a developer is very well specified by a standard set of contracts. And as I said before, these contracts need to evolve with community support. This isn't going to be eBay Inc., X.commerce saying, here's the contracts. As Neil said before, we don't know enough, right? We need to work with the community to get these right. So please help. And where do you go now? Well, let's go back to a couple of more pictures. So here's the story, right? So you get the developer package I talked about. Makes a lot of the stuff I already showed you a lot easier. You get the demo code for what I just showed from that repo. The contracts from that repo. You can download Magento and do work on that side as well. But really interesting, on Friday, the ExDev Camp, which still has seats available, is an opportunity to actually build a capability, really a complete application, end-to-end in sort of a community of developers with support from folks on our side. So there's the URL to sign up. I'd highly recommend it. It will give you a great opportunity to get your hands dirty directly with this, with some support. Praveen.
Just a reminder, the password for the Eventbrite is payxforward.
Is what?
Payxforward.
I can't understand you.
P-A-Y.
P-A-Y.
X forward. F-O-R-W-A-R-D.
Pay X forward. Everybody got that? Since it was so hard for Praveen to communicate it? Okay, questions, comments, thoughts, concerns? Okay. So our message is queued. Sorry, yes, Liam's got a microphone. You go ahead and ask your question.
My question is are the messages queued such that, one, if my server is down, when my server comes back up, I would still get the message, and two, so that they come in a specific order to deal with issues like race conditions?
So today, the answer to your questions are both, the answers to your questions are both no. By the time we are GA, the answers to your questions will be yes and no, respectively. Is that fun? What I mean is when we actually have a production launch, we will have reliable messaging. So if your server is down for some period of time, there will be retries. And that will also be fully logged and debuggable and monitorable, so you'll know if you were down long enough to really miss a message, whatever. But yeah, reliability will be guaranteed, or will be You can never guarantee reliability, but will be high from the platform. But we will not guarantee message ordering. And that is actually up to the semantics of the application to be able to manage. And we're actually writing sort of a bunch more documentation and discussion and examples that clarify what the actual interaction models look like, because they're really substantially different. This true asynchrony actually leads to a few actually very nice properties for cloud-based deployment: latency tolerance, failure tolerance, the absence of dependencies that you might have. A lot of those things fall out of this integration paradigm, which is one of the reasons it exists. So this wasn't a sort of a what is the X fabric kind of talk. It was more kind of in the details, but lots of those kinds of higher level principles are documented today and will be progressively more well documented. More questions? Oh yeah. You get nuts. Sorry. If I hit you with nuts, you get more nuts? I don't know.
So I was just wondering what Avro actually adds. What's the benefit of it? Is it purely just trying to get more data into a smaller space, or it seems
Sorry,
like
sorry, can you say it again?
what does Avro actually add to the picture?
So one thing I'll note up front is that Avro isn't actually a very sort of so I use a definition for architectural decision making that says an architectural decision is a decision that is both hard to change and has a significant impact on the quality attributes of your system. So this specific choice does have a significant impact on quality attributes. We chose it for performance, so actual encoding performance, size on the wire, for flexibility, for its schema carrying property, its reach. It's available in lots of languages. Not that they're all equally capable. It's open source. It can be encoded in JSON, which is a nice property as well. With all that said, that all sort of speaking to one half of my definition. The other half of the definition, it's not all that hard to change. If we decide, we're going to start using something besides Avro, we can start carrying new format messages on across the fabric, and new capabilities can start using new formats. And then we have a sort of a fairly natural evolution. Not that it comes for free, but it doesn't mean we have to tear down everything and have everybody change at once. We can do it incrementally over time. So that gives us a little bit of leeway if we decide for some reason that it's not a good fit. So far, it's proven very effective, and it's IDL. The fact that it has a sort of a description language actually makes it sort of handy for this purpose. Another question over there. Oh, nuts. Somebody's got to run nuts. Sorry, can you say that again?
He's asking to close the window so you can see the rest of the...
Oh, close the window. Thank you. You don't get nuts for that. More questions. Come on, we've got, we got like 2, 4, 6 more packs of nuts. Okay, question here.
I don't want to, Avro too much, but why not JSON RPC or something more standard?
Avro actually is pretty, it's open, it's easy enough to use, and it has an IDL. Yeah, we could do that. No reason not to, but again, Avro carried the IDL, schema carrying, fast on the wire, lots of language support. So it was, reasonable choice.
Yeah, another question is scaling the fabric.
Yeah, so that's a good one. You definitely get nuts for that one. Scaling the fabric. So we haven't done this implementation work, and the folks that are sitting right behind you, sort of 3 rows back, those guys that are looking suspicious and squirrely, those guys are and Mate over there, Salim over there that's been running around with a microphone, part of the X.Commerce Fabric team. And Haroon, where's Haroon? He's the engineering manager for the team. He should be ducking. So yeah, we actually will be implementing a new reliable delivery core inside the fabric. Today it's actually a self-contained kind of homegrown thing. We're going to be tearing out the delivery core of it and plugging in RabbitMQ. And yes, before anybody says, oh, RabbitMQ's got single points of failure. Yeah, we know that there's work to do. We can't just pick it up off the shelf and get it for free. We have to do sort of strategic work, just like we're doing with OpenStack and Cloud Foundry. That's all underneath all this, which I could also go into it at some length. And that will give us a mechanism to scale. So it will give us a mechanism to incrementally add nodes. And ultimately, we expect to do some global routing. Although we're going to have a fair degree of isolation in global zones, we expect that we will need to build bridges between these instances. And that also leads to a pretty interesting property that we'll have that we haven't implemented yet as well, that will let us build a what do you call it, Salim? The thing that I can call into the relay. Yeah, a message relay. So that if you don't want to have messages pushed to you, you can effectively have sort of do long polling, so that we can store them for you and you can go and get them and bring them down. There'll be maybe some scenarios where you have infrastructure that requires that. It's not quite as slick as doing it fully asynchronously or fully asynchronously, but it's a possibility, and that will also come in that same time frame.
All right. What about going the other way? You mentioned it a minute ago. Like, for instance, we have a lot of orders going to an ERP system, right? So we push the order in,
Yep.
and then we get back out the order number that goes to the legacy system, so that the Magento order now knows what this other order number is,
Sure.
so they can communicate. So how would that look if we wanted to go the other way?
So the way that would, the deeper model here is that let's imagine that you have the concept of an order, right? And as we start talking about this ontology, we'll start to define these things like order and customer and product. Let's imagine that we have an entity that we call order. It'll have some attributes and some relationships. In that case, the Magento side and the ERP side both have a perspective on that order, right? They have their own local state that they understand about the order. So when the order was created on the Magento side and it was going to go out, so the Magento side would store the order, and it would have some sort of slice of the data that it cared about on the Magento side. The message would then go out that said order created. It would go out on that topic, order created. And that message would carry the state of the order. The ERP system would be subscribed to it. It would get the message. It would take out what it cared about. Maybe it wouldn't be everything in the message. It would do whatever processing it needed to do. It would then ultimately create its own local representation of that order, including its local order number. And then it would send a message again to the fabric that would say order updated. It would send it on that topic, order updated, which again would be a representation of the order inside the message. The Magento side would be subscribed to that topic. It would get the message. It would look at it and say, oh, okay, here's an update to this order that I created. It would pull out that new order ID that came from the ERP system and write it into whatever data store it cared about on the Magento side. So that's kind of the dance that happens to manage shared state. Yes, exactly. Every merchant would be a subscriber with an endpoint. And in the Go world, we will know how to do that. In the deployed world, we're going to have to take some steps to make that progressively easier for merchants to deploy. It's an opportunity for sort of SIs as well to help.
So
Question?
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Nuts? Gentleman with the good question about tenancy and stuff.
Just wanted to add a couple of points to your answer.
Okay.
So a couple of things is,
Hold on, Chuck.
so as Jeremy was saying, these messages, right, the whole idea is that there could be multiple people subscribe to those messages, and therefore there's economies of scale there, right? Everybody's picking up the same message. So for example, just as he showed you building the integration to Facebook, somebody else could have come in and built another one of these deal announcers to Twitter, right? And they would have just hooked into the same message that was published from Magento, right? Except they'd be going out to Twitter with it.
Yeah,
So
so in that
that's
case,
a key piece.
anybody that cared about that order would be subscribed to it. Anybody that cared about that order on behalf of the merchant, right, again, the tenancy idea, would be getting those order updates and taking whatever action was appropriate. And these are some of the things I was talking about before about interaction patterns that we were working to document. Yeah. Well, as guaranteed as you can get. High reliability. Not yet, but in GA.
Is there any SSL encoding?
Yeah, it's all SSL in the wire. We haven't worked out key management yet, though. More
Can I show
questions?
Can I show you a bug on that slide?
A bug on the slide. Yeah.
The demo code is not open yet. You should probably open it up.
Yeah, it isn't open yet. It's actually not even all there yet. I was lying. I don't have enough nuts to get away with that one. All right, I'll open it up. Oh. All right, everybody can go and now complain that not everything is here. Okay, there you go. Another question?
There's a question on Twitter
Twitter
from
question.
someone called Nick, must be here. So the messaging works almost like STMP. Do you mean SMTP or STMP?
STM?
STMP.
I don't know what the P is. I know state. SMTP.
So it must be
Ah,
SMTP.
SMTP. Okay. Is there more to it than that, or is that an observation?
That's it.
Observation. Yeah, that's a way to look at it. We had been just calling it sort of publish subscribe in a generic way, but the fact that the sort of the tenancy idea and the fact that it's not the subscriber that subscribes, which is typically the way a pub sub infrastructure works. Rather, it's this third party that actually subscribes a subscriber on behalf of a tenant. Kind of makes it more kind of like we've been calling it dynamic point to multi-point. But it's more interesting to have the actual implementation than the name. Question there?
We saw on the Magento channels demo today, product going out to eBay. Is built into that orders coming back from eBay yet?
Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet. We have the orders contract in draft form. All the contracts that I showed that are in this repo are just the marketplace, and so here we can look at it. Oh, let's just look at it this way. So if we go look at the multi-marketplace common marketplace contract, trunk, source, main, Avro. So here's the marketplace contract. So you see in here, how do I zoom? Anyway, here's the marketplace contract. So you see, where is it? Listing, marketplace profiles, product details. There's a listing. So this is the one way. The orders returning will have definitely, well, I would say sort of early next year in a sort of getting close to production ready state, but we won't actually be carrying production order traffic until our GA, which is kind of in the second quarter. I'm looking out into the distance, but Praveen?
Shift Command Plus to make it bigger.
Command Plus. See, I use Dvorak. Oh yeah, that worked. Good, thank you. There you go. So here's one really annoying thing about Avro. That's how you make something nullable, but once you've seen it 100 times, you get used to it. Over here. Yeah. Capabilities? So the eBay one is implemented today, right? So we have the first eBay integration. We are expecting to be able to support multi-marketplace, right? Which is kind of the name of the thing. Multi-channel more generally. Kenshu, as you saw earlier, the Kenshu integration is actually using roughly the same interaction. The payments side, Shankar, are you going to show payments tomorrow?
Yes.
Okay, so Shankar is actually going to demo the current state of our payments integration. I think we're only going to demo Authorize.net tomorrow, right? I know we're at least doing PayPal and Authorize.net. I don't know what exactly we're demoing, but yeah, that's also in the pipeline. That's a little bit later in the cycle to go GA because of security compliance, issues. Nuts. Can you throw these over your shoulders for me? I'm getting better. Another question.
So as it stands, is Avro the single format that's supported for external publishers and subscribers to the Fabric?
Yes.
Okay.
So we will be standardizing such that if you conform to such that you can declare that you adhere to a contract, and by doing so, you will have to send and receive messages in the format that's specified by that contract. Now, what we'll enforce at the Fabric is at the topic level. So we won't actually in the Fabric be looking in the body of the message, but you will only be allowed to publish and subscribe to topics. Well, you'll be subscribed to topics that you have to subscribe to to adhere to the contract, and you will be only allowed to publish the topics that you're allowed to publish to be part of that contract.
Okay, so if we go to that contracts site on GitHub right now, that's basically everything's going to be Avro IDL as the de facto schema definition language.
So this file that is here, I just didn't click on it because then I was going to download it and blah, blah, blah. It's exactly this file. Well, with minor changes, license agreement kind of stuff. And here's another interesting point. And again, as I say quite a lot in the GitHub repo in the README, these are going to undergo refactoring, substantial refactoring, because they're not adhering to some of the principles that we've uncovered, and probably some we knew all along, and some that we've uncovered as we implemented that they need to be successful. But you'll see one example here of an association between a message type, a message schema, and a topic. So that's an annotation in the Avro IDL itself.
And then the fabric will enforce that only certain message types are allowed on certain topics, right?
It won't enforce the actual content of the message. That isn't the fabric's responsibility. But on the other end, if you get a non-adhering message, that's, then you can call failure.
Okay, thanks.
Another one there?
So how easy it is to extend like a custom contract apart from what it is, and how easy it is to build a custom contract for different purpose and build capabilities using Fabric.
So there's no point in building a private contract because nobody's going to care about it. So the thing to do is to ask, how do I build a generic contract that meets the needs of whatever domain I'm working in that I can expose in a public way. So that's why what we're asking for in this kind of work on the so-called ontology, of which the contracts are sort of a derivative, is to say, come work with us to help the overall sort of body of knowledge around these contracts evolve. So if you have a particular domain of expertise, shipping or tax or whatever, come help us, in fact, fork the repo, build the contract that you think is the best contract for that domain that you're an expert in, put in a pull request. And then we'll start evolving as a community to build a robust body of these contracts that we can expose to build this ecosystem. That's exactly what we're after.
Thank you.
Yep.
Is there going to be a certification process to go through to create a capability?
Yes, there is. That's all I have to say about that right now. The question is, will there be a certification process to build a capability? Yes. And we're going to make it really good. So we've learned some lessons as Inc. about some pitfalls in that kind of process. And in fact, Magento has got experience, and we have contacts at Apple, for example, that happens to do have to do that for high volume with the App Store. So we're going to learn from the community. Okay. Any more?
The question is, will the contract always be backwards compatible?
Oh, damn. All these hard questions. Not always. So the rule that we're likely going to settle on, although this hasn't been declared yet, in fact, there's a little caveat that says right here, the versioning scheme for contracts, including compatibility and deprecation rules, will be published soon. So hopefully that's enough of a teaser. But my expectation is that we will demand that there is a fixed deprecation period, and there's an N+1 kind of scheme. So there's a current and old, or current and new, and there's a period of time where capabilities need to support both. Again, we haven't closed on that yet. There's analysis and evaluation being done specifically on this, but the expectation is that there'll be some process of that nature. The way I like to kind of put it is I favor the Apple model of compatibility over the Microsoft model of compatibility, right? Apple, you break stuff for good reasons, and you bring, actually a better example is Firefox, right? As plugins, the plugin infrastructure evolves, Firefox brings developers along, and that's roughly the model that I think we need to settle on, as opposed to the Microsoft side where they support DOS calls from 20 years ago, which comes at an enormous cost. There's some philosophy in there. Praveen.
Just a comment, follow-up to the previous question. There is a session tomorrow in the same room at 3 p.m. on Community, the Next Generation, that talks about the certification and other programs.
Oh, great. Yeah, that's a good point. Thank you. I had forgotten about that. Okay, well, thank you very much for your attention. I appreciate it, and I'll be around if you have questions for me. And again, can the XFabric team stand up? I bet you're going to be popular. There's Matei, Salim is back there, Haroon. Thank you.